love, courage, truth. Glenn Beck.
Think before you tweet. I think this should be our new national slogan. Think before you tweet, because all of us need a refresher in this. In less than 140 characters, the President of the United States told us what he thought about the First Amendment yesterday. It was a response to NBC News. Now, NBC came out yesterday with a story that said that he was asking for more nuclear weapons. It was well-sourced. I don't know if it's true or not, but it was well-sourced, had many different sources in the story. I thought it was irresponsible of NBC to do it, but it was a story. So he tweeted yesterday, with all the fake news coming out of NBC and the networks, at what point is it appropriate to challenge their license? Bad for country. Okay. I don't even know where to begin. Let me break this down. What's bad for the country is any president of the United States advocating for any kind of obstruction of the free press. This is what a libel suit is all about. If they're lying, you sue them for it. What's bad for the country is a violation of the Constitution. What's bad for the country is not understanding the First Amendment at the most basic level. That goes for every single citizen and every elected official serving those citizens. I want you to understand, I get it. NBC is shameful. What NBC has done over the last 10 years, well, forget about that. What NBC has done and showed who they were with Harvey Weinstein is enough. I'm not a fan of NBC. But that doesn't mean we want any president, the last president, or the next president, suggesting that we can shut them down because they say things that we don't like. If they say things that are not true, that is what the court system is for. Even if Trump wanted to challenge their license, he couldn't. That's the next thing. NBC doesn't have a broadcast license. We as conservatives should be against the license practice. We wouldn't want the government to have to license everybody so they can speak their mind. But NBC doesn't have one. The local affiliates do, not the national network. And it would be highly unusual for the FCC to revoke a local license based on a broadcaster's content. It doesn't work that way. So here's some free advice. First of all, those of you who are on the left, who are all self-righteous, where were you when past presidents wanted to shut down the voices on talk radio because all those voices are lying? Where were you when they said faux news? Fox News is nothing but fake news. They ought to do something. The government should do something. So don't get all high and mighty on me now. What we need to be are Americans that are consistent. Do your homework. Learn how the Federal Communications Commission actually works. But most importantly, all of us need to reread the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And the president needs to stop caring what NBC says about him. Mr. President, they're never going to be fair to you. I've been there. Many of us have been there long before they were mean to you. They're not going to like you, period. Get over it. Now focus on the things that actually matter. North Korea, Puerto Rico, California. And 3, Mr. President, and everybody within the sound of my voice, including me, think before you tweet.
It's Thursday, October 12th. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
So I tweeted yesterday in response to the president, said I don't support NBC, but this is wrong. Immediately the tweets started rolling in. Oh, of course, never Trump. You're just afraid. You're just sorry that your guy lost. Could you please act as though you're not 6 years old? Could you actually act as though something of substance actually matters? I don't agree with NBC, but that doesn't make me doesn't put me in the position where I am for lies and fake news. First of all, the story that he was tweeting about does not appear to be fake. It has many people, including people in his own cabinet, as sources of that. It was a story he didn't like. Second of all, if it is fake, that's why we have a court system. Oh, you want NBC to be able to tell all lies. No, I don't. But you don't shut them down because the government says they're telling lies. You can decide they're lies, but I have news for you. Do you remember the last 8 years? Do you remember what those in the government were saying about the things that you believed were true? That they were lies? Do you remember how many years we have fought and how close we have come to losing our own voices because somebody in the government said we were lying, we were spreading all kinds of lies and hatred, and something needed to be done? And that's when you ran where? To the Constitution. And you were right to do so. But it only matters. Your actions only matter when A, somebody's not watching, or B, everybody is watching, and it hurts your side. The Constitution is only there. It's not there for the popular people. It's there for the unpopular people. You don't have to protect speech that everybody likes. Why do I have to protect? Hey, free movies today. Everybody go see a free movie. And boy, you look beautiful. Oh my gosh, that dress, that doesn't make you look fat. That makes you look beautiful. You don't have to defend that speech. Believe me, there isn't anybody shutting you up on that. You have to separate the Constitution and our God-given rights from a court system and from the free market system. Do we actually believe in anything? I'm wondering if people actually believe in God anymore, because they don't seem to give him any power. It's all going to come from the government. It's all going to come from man. It's all going to come from a party. It's not going to come from God. It's not going to come from enough of God's people turning around and going, geez, have we screwed this up? We're really sorry. Let's be peacemakers. No, that's crazy talk. That's too weak. That's surrendering. Oh, you're right. You're right. Do we even believe in what the gospel teaches us about forgiveness? Glenn, you can't talk to those people. You can't forgive them. They're never going to forgive you. Oh, you're right. You're right. I remember that up on the cross when Jesus was like, Father, don't forgive them because they won't forgive me. Do we believe in anything that we say we believe in? We hold these truths to be self-evident. They're not self-evident anymore. We can't even agree on the truth anymore. What is the truth? How many genders are there? You want to argue about that truth? We are currently programming AI. AI, garbage in, garbage out. AI, which some of the greatest minds of this century and the last century are all warning us, don't unleash this, because once you do, it could kill the human race. We're programming it. With what? With what truth? 2 plus 2 equals 6 if you can show me the math? We don't have any self-evident truths anymore. But here they are. All men, all women, all humans are created equal. And you know who's in charge of those people? A higher power. It doesn't come from earth. You are born with certain rights, and those rights include life, the chance to live free without being thrown into jail, without any kind of questions, without any kind of answers, without a trial. Nobody can just take away your liberty. Nobody can just take away your life. And nobody can take your property. We violate all of those now. There's a reason why the First Amendment is the first, because it's the most important. I have a right to believe what I believe. And no man can take that away from me. No man can force me to believe something I don't want to believe. No man can force me to say God doesn't exist or God does exist. And because that's so difficult for humans to think about, wait a minute, you belong to a different religion. Forget about God exists and God doesn't exist. You belong to a different religion. Yes, you agree that Jesus is the savior of the earth, but the rest of it, oh my gosh, we should kill you. Because man has shown himself as intolerant on basic things like that, it's the first. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Wait, what? I thought the government was here to build roads and schools and to make sure that everybody had a fair shake. No. Governments are instituted among men to secure these rights. Period. Our government hasn't secured these rights in a very long time. You know why? Because each side only argues for their side. How many deep committed Christians would die for the right of the worst atheist to be able to have his view? That's not my fight. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. How many atheists would die for the right for me to have my view? This is much bigger than politics. This is fundamental, eternal truths kind of things. This isn't about the national anthem. This isn't about an NBC News. This is a fundamental, elemental, eternal, God-given right that government can't mess with the press at all. And I say that strongly now because there's going to be a time, and it could be sooner rather than later, where this guy isn't your president. And there's another guy who maybe is a bigger bully, but he's on the other side. And he decides that talk radio needs to be shut down. He decides that, you know what, we need to license all of these people on the internet. You can't just have people creating their own blogs and calling themselves news people. You can't do that. And if you don't think that's coming, you're a fool. Because you were with me when I told the left, don't do this. Because there's going to come a time when your guy is not in office, and you don't want the next guy to have so much power. You knew that was true. But now we're all acting like this will last forever. It won't. And until we respect the rights of all men, until we respect the rights that are guaranteed in our Constitution, that are spelled out in the Constitution, we are headed for more trouble, and we will lose this nation. I don't know how you sleep at night.
Glenn Beck.
Just talking about all these things that everybody was. For instance, we're going to get into next hour. There's a story today from the New York Times that now CEOs and people are starting to not have dinners alone with women colleagues. They don't ever want to be left alone with women colleagues, et cetera, and how smart that is. Oh, really? Because you guys were just making fun of Mike Pence for saying that.
He did it because of morals, though. These weird morals, Christian morals, I guess they're called, that he has.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's weird.
That's weird. But they're doing it because it's a good business decision, so it's okay.
That's crazy. I don't know how people are sleeping at night. How are people navigating that? I feel sorry for them. I really do. Life is so hard. It is so hard as it is. Why would you make it more complex with having to switch sides back and forth? How I guess maybe they think it makes it easier. It doesn't. In the end, trust me, you end up like an alcoholic. Trust me.
You speak as if you have some experience.
I do. I have a little experience with alcohol. And you pile up so many things that are diametrically opposed to themselves, where you just can't function anymore.
It's one of those things too. I can understand it. It's just looking at the news every day. I kind of want to. There's a part of me that just wants to be the Miami Dolphins coach, just like before a meeting, snorting cocaine and coming in. You know, that's kind of there's at least 10% of me that wants to be that guy. And is that 10% right now? You don't know, because you weren't in the meeting before this meeting.
Wait, hold it just a second.
But you know, I can understand wanting to escape on this. It's hard. It's like I dealing with it
because
nonsense.
I'm an alcoholic. I can't go there with you. I think I could have, but because I've seen what actually happens at the end.
No, it's terrible. I'm not saying it's a good decision.
No. I don't mean about the cocaine thing. I mean about just escaping by just doing it. Just whatever. Just take that side, take this side. Doesn't matter.
I think a lot of people do that. Look, it's not cocaine, I'm obviously joking, but there's I think a part of that goes along with whatever argument's coming on today. It's different than your principle last week.
Right.
Who cares?
Who cares?
It's easier today. I'm escaping from that thing because I don't want to think about what I said earlier.
Look at NBC. And it's all going to come down. Look at NBC. They're trying to be all high and mighty and say, we have to report the news. Yet they passed on the Weinstein story.
Glenn
How do you live with
Beck.
yourself?
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
You know, yesterday we were talking about basic rules of civility, and then today Sam B came out with something for the Harvey Weinstein saga, just to let movie executives and TV executives know, just some basic rules. And one is don't touch yourself in front of people.
And that's a hard, fast rule?
That's a hard, fast rule. Don't touch yourself. It's difficult to do or not at all difficult to do. Mm-hmm. But don't touch yourself in front of people.
And I think she even pointed out that there's a pretty high standard to that. Even if they say it's okay, still don't do it.
Don't do it.
Which is a pretty good
rule of thumb.
Yeah.
She also suggested that you don't send pictures of your body parts. She said because no matter what you think, that's an ugly part of your body, and nobody wants to see it.
Yeah, that whole process is actually pretty hideous when you think about it. And I think it's one of those things that I think we shouldn't think about it, because at some point we're all just going to stop and this race is going to die.
But can I tell you something? Think of how crazy. That's your rule of thumb that has to be said. Don't masturbate into a plant in a restaurant. Oh, I didn't really?
It's bad for the person with you and bad for the plant.
I mean, that's crazy. I was looking up these rules for gentlemen. This is yesterday, because we just got to go find some basic principles for ourselves again. I don't know if I do any of these, and these are pretty basic. These are old principles. Okay, the height of incivility is paying more attention to your watch, your pipe, or your notebook than the person you're having a conversation with. Even if you're bored and tired, make no sign of it.
Insert phone in there, and we've completely abandoned that rule.
Gone. You could be fascinated by what somebody is saying, but you're still scrolling. You're not looking at them.
It's true. It's a terrible development in our society.
Horrible. Okay, so fail on that one. Never interrupt a speaker. Sometimes even a demand for a specification may sound impolite. It's even worse if you terminate someone else's sentences before they do so, or hasten a person to finish speech using another method. Don't cut another person's speech short, even if you already know the story that is being told.
We've come so far on that one. When someone actually interrupts you with a clarification, you're like, oh, wow, they're actually listening. You're like, oh, wow, that's incredible. The other thing, too, is the worst thing that humans do to each other is you're in the middle of telling a story a specific way, that you're revealing a specific piece of information at some given time because you're actually trying to communicate something. And then they just jump in and finish it and interrupt you and say, oh, you mean when they did this? It's like, what does that get you? You've guessed the ending? If you get it right, most of the time you're not.
This is the typical, this is the thing that is stereotypical that spouses do.
Oh, well, my wife does do it.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a stereotypical thing where you see these people who have been together forever, and they're like, no, let me just tell the story. Can I just tell? No. You tell it your way, I'm going to tell it my way.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like there's a moment of excitement in people where they're like, oh, I think I might be able to guess the ending of this story right now, 3 seconds before I'm going to hear it. Let me interrupt and say it. What good does that do you? There's obviously a reason.
You're very passionate about this. Who in your life?
Oh, it's absolutely Lisa. But I mean, everybody does it. My wife, Lisa. But I really did start this with, it's the worst thing human beings do to one another. And
I'm not sure
there's only a
true.
couple of exceptions to that.
Right.
I'm only slightly exaggerating.
Ovens might be
like
worse.
Rwanda,
Yes.
sure, yeah,
Okay.
but there's a couple.
Sure, all right. Don't try to prove your point by raising your tone of voice, insolent behavior, or put downs. Are you kidding me?
I mean, you mentioned this earlier. You were on Twitter, and you're like, can we just be older than 6 years old? Not on Twitter, we can't. No.
Not on Facebook, and not in real life. Not in real life.
That's all it is, it's I'm a fan of sarcasm. I'm a fan of snark. I like it. It's just the supply is increased so far.
Because
it's beyond the demand.
Lowest. It is, look, sarcasm is tough to understand, is tough to do right. Parody is really, really difficult. And without it not just being just snark put downs.
Yeah, and I think
there's no skill to it anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. It's like I love sarcasm. I'm a huge fan of it. It's basically my natural language. But there's a part of it where, like, people made cheesesteaks in Philly, and now you go to Idaho, and they're like, Philly cheesesteak, and it's like, it's not a Philly cheesesteak. And that's where we are with, I would say, wit in general, where it's like everyone thinks they're good at it.
Everybody thinks they're good at parody. Everybody thinks that they're really, really good at. Everybody thinks now they could make A Mighty Wind or,
it's hard to
those
do.
mockumentaries. Everybody just thinks they're hysterical. And really, you're not.
Many of them are
really not.
I mean, you look at what's the budget of Saturday Night Live trying to do 4 parodies a year because they have 2 episodes?
And they suck.
And most of them are terrible.
Right. Never, unless you're asked to, talk about your own business and profession. Devote little less attention to yourself.
Another gentleman's tip, to not talk about your business.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate talking about my business. I'm sure this is the same way with you, in that people, when they meet you or they're talking to them at some gathering, they assume you want to talk about politics or you want to talk about,
I don't usually
some news story. And most of the time, I'd rather jump off the building.
Yes.
So I think that's that, but that's usually what they want to
talk something deeper. I mean, if I'm gonna waste time, I go watch a movie or something. Waste time. Great time waster. Salvation. It's on Amazon now. Have you ever heard of it?
I hope you weren't just saying the religious concept. I thought that was really a weird thing to say from Glenn Beck.
No. Salvation. It's a TV show called Salvation. Oh, okay. I think it's on Amazon. Really good. Really, really good. And it's kind of like an Elon Musk guy, and there's a comet coming for the Earth, and it's all kinds of espionage with the Russians and NASA. And it's really good. Anyway. Good time waster. An intelligent, educated gentleman is usually discreet. Even if he feels superior to other people in the company, he would never attempt to show his supremacy. He would not try to discuss topics that other people are incompetent to converse on. Everything said by a gentleman is always marked by courtliness and respect for other people's feelings and opinions. Who lives that?
That's very rare.
I'm not even sure the Pope lives that now.
What year was this again?
Doesn't say. Doesn't say.
Generations ago.
The first one involved a pipe.
Okay.
So,
well, they still exist.
It's no, that's a crack pipe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's no less important to be a profound listener than to be a good speaker. Ability to listen is proper to a man from a good society. This skill makes a person an agreeable conversation partner. I don't think we even listen to each other anymore.
What?
I said I don't think we even listen to each other anymore.
Sorry.
7, never listen to a conversation that is not supposed to be heard. If you are too close to a location where conversation is taking place, serve the decencies and change your position.
That's interesting. So don't eavesdrop, essentially. Yeah, that's. I guess I don't know. We should tell the government that. Isn't that the Fourth Amendment?
Yes, it is.
It's the Fourth Amendment in a gentleman's tip.
It is. To the extent possible, contrive to be brief and to the point. Avoid long digressions and irrelevant comments. By submitting flattery, you submit to stupidity and self-conceit.
Wait, by
submitting flattery, you submit to stupidity and self-conceit. If you are sure that your opponent is completely wrong, hold a peaceful discussion and deliver your opinion without getting personal. Hello?
I mean, that one is
gone.
Dead. I mean, dead. I mean, obviously, social media is the ultimate example of that. But
if you are sure that your opponent is completely wrong, if you're sure they're completely wrong,
call them a Nazi.
Hold
right?
a peaceful discussion and deliver your opinion without getting personal. Seeing your opponent rigid in his beliefs should be a signal for you to change the subject neatly. This would allow your opponent to save face while you will avoid getting angry and frustrated.
It's an interesting perspective because essentially you're looking to shield your opponent from harm.
Yes.
Right? Like, you can win. I can destroy you right now.
But I'm not going to.
But I should remove myself to not take the victory. I mean, obviously there are places where that's not right to do.
I think conservatives generally have done this more than liberals do. Because you're usually in a situation to where you're the odd man out. And so you just don't want to fight with everybody, and you just kind of, you know what I mean? But if you are in the area of the country where you have the upper hand, you quickly become the other person.
Because I think that's a tough one because, yes, at a party, It's going to be a more enjoyable party if you do things like that. You remove yourself from those debates. But I mean, I think there'd be a lot of people listening who would say, and I tend to agree with a lot of it, that if you don't fight for this stuff, it's just you're going to lose it. That's how these lines get rolled back constantly, because you're sitting there not fighting and the other side is fighting all the time.
Well, but that's not. This is a conversation. That's not we're not talking about a place to where it matters. This is just a conversation with somebody, right?
Yeah, I guess the argument would be it does matter, right? In a cultural,
at a bar.
Yeah, exactly. I think, but I mean, I don't know. Go back to the founding. See if there's any arguments won in bars, right? I mean, I think that's where those things happen.
Well, you still could have a peaceful discussion, deliver your opinion without getting personal.
You could still
do that.
You could still certainly do that
without being a jerk. It's always good to have strong political beliefs. Now, this is rule number 11. It's always good to have strong political beliefs. However, don't show them off whenever possible. Under no circumstances should you force other people to agree with you. Listen courteously to those with opinions that you don't agree with, and keep your temper. Let your opponent believe that you are a bad politician, but do not give him a reason to question the fact that you are a gentleman.
Wow. I mean, we're not even remotely close to these things.
Close to that.
Our focus now is like a Mike Tyson approach to these things. It's like you try to go for these one-punch knockouts all the time. And there's not that dance, right? Like a lot of times you learn and your foundations become stronger and more reinforced if you sit there and listen to what they're trying to go for. What are they trying to do? And you internalize that, and many times it's going to harden you even more on what you believe, but it's also going to make you much more effective communicating it.
Yeah, it always, you cut somebody off and you call them names, it ends it. Usually stupid people hang themselves.
Yeah.
Just by asking them questions, and not honest questions, they usually hang themselves. And then you can usually come in and go, it doesn't really work, does it? I mean, have you thought about it this way? But nobody listens because we're just calling each other names. You're a communist, you're a Nazi. And then we move on, and what? We build camps for the communists or for the Nazis.
Beck.
Boy Scouts are now starting to admit girls. Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Okay. Makes sense to me. Why not? We'll get into that. Also, a couple of stories on firefighters. One in California I'm going to share next hour. And there's another one in Detroit this guy is under fire for no reason, it seems.
Well, he engaged in unsatisfactory work behavior, which was deemed offensive and racially insensitive to members of the Detroit Fire Department.
Yeah.
After a thorough investigation, it was determined that the best course of action was to terminate the employment.
Yeah. What did he do? What did he do?
He brought a watermelon. To the station. I mean, at Engine 55, he brought a watermelon there with a bunch of black employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now he's fired. Thank God they cured this.
You know who's upset about this?
Yeah, him, because he got fired.
Well, that and his black fireman co-workers that said that's not what, it wasn't a joke. He wasn't bringing it in. He was bringing it so we could eat. We could all eat, and he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, they said, just want to let everyone know he's a real amazing dude, and it was all good intentions. And our entire class is supporting him in this, especially us African Americans, and that's all that needs to be said.
This is crazy.
He brought food.
That's a witch hunt.
A complete
it's
insanity.
Witch hunt.
It's not a racial statement. It's a fruit.
Glenn Beck. Love, courage, truth. Glenn Beck.
America, we've had a tough year. We have really had a tough year. California, hell has now arrived in California. 22 wildfires have sprung up all over the state, scorching everything in their path. As of this morning, 23 people have been killed and 300 people are missing. Despite the numerous earthquakes this state has seen, this may end up being the worst natural disaster in California history. 170,000 acres of land and over 3,500 buildings have already been destroyed, and this has zero containment. 20,000 people have been evacuated. Thousands have lost their power. Napa Valley has taken the worst of it. The images are straight apocalyptic. Entire communities have been wiped off the map. Neighborhoods near Santa Rosa look like World War II pictures of Stalingrad or Hiroshima. Rivers of wine are boiling as they leak out of scorched vineyards. Many residents are in the worst hit areas that never even knew the fires were sweeping down on them. They had no idea until the last minute. All was quiet until the shouts of frantic neighbors jarred people awake and out of their homes. As they walked out into their front yard, the sound of smoke detectors could be heard from nearby communities. Horns from cars added to the chaos as families sped down the roads in desperation. There wasn't any warning? No. The answer is no. Why? Well, for one, the cell towers are being wiped out, and the fires and the landlines are all being destroyed by these fires. So you're not able to make a phone call. The area had access to the federal wireless emergency alert system, but it's unclear now at this point if authorities even used it. And if so, why didn't people receive anything? San Jose, believe it or not, has had this problem before. Just a few months ago, the city got nailed for not warning the public of destructive floodwaters. And a report found that there was a general lack of institutional knowledge on how to use the wireless emergency alert system. So wait, how much did they pay for it? And nobody around knows how to use it? Lives are at stake, and those in charge didn't know what to do. May I ask how this is possible in Silicon Valley? I'm sorry, I do know how it... I'm sorry. The government is in charge. That's why the tech community needs to come together and ensure this doesn't happen again, because the local government is a joke. They usually are. They're not getting it done. A cold front is now blowing in this morning, creating winds that will keep these fires moving fast. Again, zero containment. The carnage is expected to last at least until Saturday. Whew, America, it's been a hard year, hasn't it? From the hurricanes, one after another, to massive floodwaters, to drought, and now this. But you know what? It's given us a chance to come together. It's given us a chance to put things into perspective and find out what really matters, and who we really are. And who our neighbor, how we really feel about our neighbor. May I ask if you would like to help your fellow man? Go to mercury1.org now. Donate on the front page. We are aiding the first responders now, trying to get them the supplies that they need, and we need your help at mercury1.org. If you don't have a widow's mite, that's cool. Send your prayers towards California today.
It's Thursday, October 12th. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
I have to share a story with you that I find just so comforting. This comes in from California. This is from Cade Boger. Cade and Melissa Boger, they live at what's called Aces High Ranch, and they have some horses in the area. 10:30 last night, this is what Cade wrote with pictures of his ranch going up in flames. 10:30 last night, the family was safely evacuated, but I realized my horses weren't safe from the fast-moving fire that was devouring our ranch. I got up to my house as the second California fire engine arrived in my yard. And there's my 15-foot Old Glory snapping in the wind, blowing 40, gusting at 60 plus. I wanted to pull it down because I knew it would burn up or be torn to shreds in the wind, but there wasn't any time. The fire line was moving so fast. I whistled for the horses. I got them through the gate and got them to safer ground. The rest of the night and this morning has been a blur. And then I got home to my still-standing house at 3:30. I was blown away to see my flag. It wasn't flying in front of my house. It had been taken down and folded respectfully and placed safely on my couch by the firemen. It was a little frayed and sooty, but the gesture meant so much to me, I stood there and looked at it and cried. What kind of people are these? They save a man's home and family, and then that? They're just the best kind of people, I guess. I'll make sure that Facebook post is up at glennbeck.com and also at on my Facebook page as well. There's a couple of things. We were talking last hour about the president going after NBC and saying that NBC should possibly have their license revoked. It goes against everything that you as a conservative have stood for. And we're going to get back to that a little later because this is a really important thing. You can disagree with NBC, and you can even say that NBC is lying, but that's not a reason to have the government suggest we revoke license or start looking into license if we disagree with their writing or believe that they are lying. Remember, we've spent the last 30 years with people saying that Rush Limbaugh lies, that Glenn Beck lies. No, we have a different opinion, and we look at the news pattern differently. And quite honestly, when you sit down and you talk to liberals who have thought you've lied over the years and you show them the fact pattern, sometimes they open up their eyes and go, wait a minute, I didn't know any of that. Yeah, because they weren't lies. We cannot put ourselves in a situation to where the next president can make the same case to license people on the internet or to deregulate or to delicense radio stations that are engaging in talk radio. Bad idea. It was bad with the last president. It's bad with this president. We'll get into that. I really wanted to spend some time here talking about NBC and what they have done with Harvey Weinstein. They have this high and mighty, we've got to do this. We have to tell the truth. We have to stand up for power and stand up to power. Really? Really? Where were you?
Yeah. I mean, where were they this whole time? I mean, there was this attempt to how often have they preached to other Republicans? How come you will not stand up to this Donald Trump? Where are you? You need to speak truth to power no matter how much it hurts. They've demanded that from every American over and over and over and over again. And it's a very American thing to do, right? I mean, that is legitimately what we were founded on, speaking truth to power. So it connects with every American. However, it's hard to connect with that concept from somebody who's not doing it themselves. I mean, if you look at this Weinstein thing, where were you with this? They had this story. And it's not just some crazy conservative conspiracy where you're trying to make MSNBC look bad. The guy who wrote the story, Ronan Farrow, was on with Rachel Maddow and went and basically said, yeah, well, I had the story here. And, sorry, they would not take it. I had to take it to the New Yorker. They tried, NBC has tried now to come up and say, well, look, wasn't ready to report.
Yeah, it didn't really hit all of our standards. Yes, it did.
And by the way, for all the things that you could say about the New Yorker, which is not a conservative publication by any means, this is what they are known for. Ridiculous levels of fact-checking when it comes to international stories and all sorts of stuff. This is a very difficult standard to hit. The New Yorker is known as probably the most difficult standard to hit in traditional sort of mainstream media fact-checking. So the idea that NBC would get rid of it because of this is something that the reporter who worked for NBC didn't believe, and the employees at NBC and MSNBC don't seem to believe either. And when you're abandoning that, I mean, everybody knows they had the story. Everybody knows that they gave it up. They gave it up because they had some hesitance for the consequences that would come from actually publishing it, whether it was other associated media people that would not deal with them anymore, or whether it was Weinstein himself suing them. Whatever it was, the truth had an agenda there.
I want you to listen to a couple of quotes here. First, here is Farrow on women being afraid of Weinstein and the story. Listen.
Just to be clear, this is a woman who told you, detailed her allegation about Weinstein to you, was going to be on the record, and withdrew her permission.
On camera on the record in January and withdrew.
Because she says the legal angle is coming after me. Does that mean the Weinstein companies? Does that mean Weinstein personally?
I will tell you that source after source said they were receiving harassing calls. Some of those are also discussed in this story. These women were afraid, and based on my reporting, legitimately afraid.
This is what happened with the people who spoke out against Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. Same thing. They all report, I was harassed, I was called, I was threatened.
And look at what they said about Trump. I mean, again, they did the same thing with Clinton. They were, well, look, this is a vast right-wing conspiracy, and we should really give that some credence, that theory. Let's see what we can find there. With Donald Trump, it was immediate. I mean, the way they even talk about him on the Access Hollywood bus is as if he was doing those things to unwilling women on the bus.
Yes.
When instead, he was, look, I don't think it was a good moment, and I think
it's a horrible
strongly criticized him for that.
Yes.
However,
it's not rape.
It's not Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, he didn't do it.
There's no evidence of that at this point. And you listen to the way. Remember, this audio is coming from Rachel Maddow's show on MSNBC, talking to Ronan Farrow, who is also an employee of NBC, and they are sitting here criticizing NBC, as you'll hear in this audio.
So here's the next one: NBC getting pressure.
So, Ronan, you just said that one of these women spoke on camera back in January. Why did you end up reporting this story for The New Yorker and not for NBC News?
Look, you would have to ask NBC and NBC executives about the details of that story. I'm not going to comment on any news organization's story that they, did or didn't run. I will say that over many years, many news organizations have circled this story and faced a great deal of pressure in doing so. And there are now reports emerging publicly about the kinds of pressure that news organizations face in this. And that is real. In the course of this reporting, I was threatened with a lawsuit personally by Mr. Weinstein. And, we've already seen that the Times has been publicly threatened with a suit. I don't want to describe any suits leveled at other organizations that I work with, but certainly this is a considerable amount of pressure that outlets get as well.
And
it's interesting because he's walking that line, and he's being careful there, but you can obviously hear what he's saying. And it's interesting that Maddow even asks about it. I mean, she deserves some credit, I think, there for actually making sure this gets on the air.
So here's the problem with NBC on this one. The reason why this most likely happened was it's not just NBC News. It's NBC programming as well. So Weinstein, how many projects was NBC Universal doing with Weinstein? How many programs, how many stars could he affect? So I'm guessing that it wasn't just the lawsuits that were causing the pressure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing it's NBC Entertainment who was like, you got to stop this.
And not to mention allies of Weinstein who would no longer potentially work with NBC. If
Correct.
Matt Damon or whatever
Correct.
had a project he was working on, maybe he doesn't come on all those shows next
Correct.
time he's doing a movie because he's pissed about this. I'm not saying
Correct.
that's even a rash. I'm not blaming Damon for that. But there was so much hesitance. And you want to get something like that right. You should get the story right. But they had the story right by all accounts. And they held off on it for some unknown reason that even the guy who wrote the story is critical of.
So the reason why we're bringing this up is just to show how hypocrites don't win. You just don't win. You have to be consistent. You must be consistent. NBC says, we're going to speak truth to power. Well, no, you didn't do it when it affected your side under Barack Obama. We all know that. You didn't ask the tough questions because you had access and everything else. Okay, we got it. That's why there's so many people in America that are mad at you. Look at the way you're treating Megyn Kelly. Look at how you are throwing her under the bus. You're spending all of this money and you're torpedoing yourself. It's so stupid. You're so self-destructive. So then what happens? You come in and say, well, I think we've learned some lessons and we're going to go after, maybe we were a little too soft on Barack Obama. So we're going to go after Donald Trump because we've learned our lesson. Really? Harvey Firestein or Weinstein. How about explain this? You had it. You decided not to. Why? And I believe in many circles, it is not just because of money and access. But it's also because he does a lot of good on our side. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a really bad guy, but I mean, look at how much good he does on our side politically. Are we guilty of engaging in that at all in our lives?
Glenn Beck.
So, Harvey Weinstein, he's going. He's pulling a Roman Polanski. He's out of the country. He's going to rehab someplace. I guarantee you, it's like with Hitler's family in Argentina. I mean, the guy is never going to be. He's never going to be in a place where they can extradite him. Guarantee it. And as he was getting into the car, listen to his last statement in the press. Now, remember, he's going to get help. Listen.
We're glad to see you doing okay.
Thank you. Guys, I'm not doing okay.
You're not?
I'm trying. I got to get help, guys. You know what? We all make mistakes. Second chance, I hope. Okay?
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we all make mistakes. It's like Bernie Madoff going, I didn't. Okay, you always carry the one. I mean, you've never made a math mistake. There's a difference, man.
There's a bit of a whoopsie.
Yeah, there was an accounting error, okay? You've never had one of those? No, not like that.
No. Well, look, it's 30 years of serial harassment of women, multiple rape accusations. But, we all have our whoopsies. I think that's the way to communicate that message.
No, he is going to be on the slopes with Roman Polanski soon. And Hollywood will love him.
Yeah, how long, you think? He's obviously got quite a...
What time is it now?
It really could be today.
It really could be
today. If he makes an important work that takes on Donald Trump, he'll be back. He'll be back in the good graces.
Yep.
Glenn Beck. This is the Glenn Beck program.
Years ago I told you the whole thing is going to turn inside out and upside down, and everything that you thought was solid will be liquid, and everything you thought you could trust, you can no longer trust. And we're in the middle of that right now. If you look at how everything is turning inside out, and you look at some brands that have been trusted, I think the number one trusted brand in America still, I shouldn't say trusted, non-divisive brand, number one I think is Oreos. Nobody's against Oreos.
Well, and
if Oreos ever gets political, I'm still eating them.
Right. With all the mystery flavors they're coming out with, you got to still go with it.
They could make them in the shape of my head, and they could say, eat him, he's that evil, and I would still be eating Oreos, but that's a different story. But if you look at all of the brands that are going, they're now changing the name of the Weinstein Group. Gone. How much was that worth? NBC, how much is that worth? And look at how it is so divisive now. There's two other brands that have just taken huge hits, and one of them is Trump. The Trump hotels are struggling, except the ones where they're close access to him. So the one Mar-a-Lago is doing well.
The D.C. one.
And the D.C. one is doing well. But everywhere else, it's struggling.
Yeah, they're having issues now with sports franchises that used to be big connoisseurs of Trump products, which you kind of would understand, right? They're kind of glitzy and they're obviously high priced. A lot of the NBA teams, when they played the Knicks or the Nets, would go and stay at Trump Soho. And there's a Washington Post story about how now I think there were 17 that had stayed there, and at least 16 of those teams have now said they're no longer staying at any Trump facilities.
The one brand that has gone from really America's brand to now deeply in trouble is the NFL. And there's new stats out on the NFL brand.
Yeah, they're talking about how what brands are most polarizing. And some of them you'd expect, like CNN, for example. Among Clinton voters is plus 54 favorability. Among Trump voters is minus 28. It's an 82-point spread. So that is one of the highest one. NBC News is a 72-point spread. There's a bunch, too, that are conservative-leaning, where that are big spreads. Chick-fil-A, for example, more favorable 47-point spread among Republicans.
That's crazy. It's a chicken sandwich place.
Right, but they're associated with that, Cabela's, right? Like you're outdoorsy, guns, okay, 45-point spread towards Republicans. Where, Fox Business is a 46-point spread for Republicans. You have CBS News is a 48-point spread, but towards Democrats. Democrats favor it more. The number one on the entire list is Trump Hotels, which is now a 99-point spread. But again, he's the president of the United States. That's to be expected.
If it was Obama Hotels, it would be the same.
Of course.
It would be the same.
There's really not much to take out of this. Yeah. The one that's interesting, and it's brand new, is the National Football League, which is now a 62-point spread between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats view it favorably by 38 points, and Trump voters minus 24. And that's all new. And you'd think, well, that's because of the anthem thing.
It's not.
It's actually not because of the anthem thing. We got to get to that at some point.
Yeah, we're going to get to that on tomorrow's program. So where are the brands that you can trust? This is where the entrepreneur comes in. Because, as I've also said to you, as these things change, you keep your credibility, and you might weather the storm. And everything is being redesigned right now. Go out and redesign it yourself. Otherwise, you're going to live in another design by somebody else. If you don't build your dreams, somebody else is going to hire you to build their dreams.
So a few years ago, we had a kid, I'd almost say a kid, Joshua Parker, who came into the studios back when we were in New York. And he actually started his own company.
Joshua, how old were you when you were on the show with us?
17.
17. You started your company at 11.
Yes, 11. So I started making maple syrup when I was 11 on a school field trip. They showed us how. I went home and boiled it on a stove, and then when I was the next year, my grandparents bought me a small evaporator to boil it in my backyard. And then when I was 15, I was like, this is something I can do. If I do it well enough, I won't have to go to college. Dad, will you help me?
That's
and
good
so
inspiration there.
He said, if the bank is crazy enough to co-sign on a loan, I'll do it, or give us a loan, I'll co-sign on it. And so we went to the bank. The bank said yes, and we went into business together.
He's really the crazy one there, by the way. He's co-signing. The bank is
how great is
the loan to him.
How great is that to have a dad like that?
That's
awesome.
It really is. I mean, he was. None of this would be possible without him.
Yeah.
And so having a dad like that has been amazing.
So, okay, so you started making real maple syrup, and this is no joke. My son drinks it straight from the bottle. He really does. We get your syrup. When we get it, we can't keep. We have to hide it. I swear to you. He's 13 and he sees your syrup and he's like, "Oh my gosh, no, Rafe, no, those are for pancakes." So anyway, he's your biggest fan. He's your biggest fan. So you started making the maple syrup, and it went really well.
Yes.
And what's happened since?
So after I first got that first loan and went into business, I had my first year of making a lot of syrup in upstate New York. I'm from way up by the Canadian border, more it's maple country. And then in June of 2015, I was actually on the show with you. And so that was really our first big thing where we all of a sudden got a whole bunch of online orders, and we started to kind of be substantiated as a real national brand. And so after that, by the end of that year, we were in 500 stores.
Unbelievable.
And so we had grown. And then last fall, we went on the show Shark Tank. And there's no deal, and that was okay. But this year, we've expanded. We've come out with an organic maple cotton candy, a maple butter, which is a delicious spread.
Oh, my gosh.
And, of course, the maple syrup.
Oh, my gosh. Would you please introduce your wife? She's sitting here.
Yes.
Please introduce your wife.
This is my wife, Allie Parker. We got married in January of this year. And so we are in
You guys are breaking.
business
How old
together.
are you?
I'm 19 and she's 21.
That's like you're breaking every rule of society. That is so great.
You're making everyone in the audience feel like failures. I hope you realize that.
I know.
I know I do.
We do secretly hate you.
Yes, but you brought us cotton candy, so we'll let you in anyway. And Al, you're actually the chief marketing officer for the company?
Yes.
How did you guys meet?
So we actually met at CPAC. I was working for the Ted Cruz campaign, and so
I knew I liked you.
yeah.
But it's just amazing because we really believe and have kind of bonded over the fact that that business is the most powerful platform for ministry, and so we can take these products that God has given us and bring it to the rest of America in new, delicious ways, and really be able to change people's lives through business. And so, working together this year, we've launched into 2 regions of Costco, 2 regions of Whole Foods, Wegmans, and a handful of other retailers. And God has just been very, very good to us this year, and it's been an amazing journey since we started.
So you're in Wegmans and who else?
Costco, Wegmans, Whole Foods,
Costco,
and a few others.
Whole Foods too.
Yes.
Wow.
This is about to be in my mouth as well.
Yeah, I know. So this is Parker's Maple Cotton Candy. There's 2 quotes on here, which I think are great. 114 servings, calories per serving. The biggest serving of the best tasting 114 calories ever. Mark Cuban said that. Wow. And then there's another quote underneath your signature and your little face. Let's see. When I first produced my first bottle of Parker's 100% real maple syrup as an 11-year-old in 2009, I saw a day when when it could cover the earth. Okay, just most pancakes and waffles in America. Parker's real maple butter and real maple cotton candy soon followed, and I knew it had to be shared. Made from real cane sugar, real maple sugar. Hope you enjoy the delicious, smooth, not too sweet, 100% maple cotton candy. Your taste buds will never forget. Then you sign it, and underneath it says John 15:5.
Yes.
What is John 15:5?
So it's I am the branches. You are the I am the vine. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. And so it's something that when I was 15 and designed our first package, it was something that I put on there, and it was just, to me, it was like this company. There's no reason for my dad to say yes. There's no reason for the bank to say yes. There's no reason for all the people who helped along the way to say yes. And every night it was just me praying, like, God, please, please open this door, and I'll do everything I can to make this happen. And he did, and and it was just, it truly showed that when you are willing to work hard, but also put praying and faith first, there's nothing that God won't open or make happen for you. So
that's great. I mean, it's so you see capitalism be vilified so often, and then you hear things like that. I mean, and also you eat things like cotton candy.
This is really good. Now let me ask you this.
I've never had anything like that before.
You realize when you hit my age, you're going to be fat like me. Because there's absolutely no way. I used to be skinny like you. I could eat anything.
And I was really
Not
impressed
anymore.
with Allie when I first started this, because I'm like, wow, Chief Marketing Officer 20. This is going to be the easiest job in the world.
It is.
It's cotton candy made out of maple syrup.
This is really good.
It's really delicious. And it has that maple taste. So
Right.
What's it like trying to grow a company like this? I'm always fascinated by these stories. I'm addicted to that podcast, How I Built That. Have you guys listened to that?
Yes.
You guys would,
yes.
Yeah, it seems like you should be on it. But just going through and taking it from, hey, I went on a school trip and got maple syrup and figured out how to make it, to get to Wegmans and Costco. What is that process like? And make the answer long so I can eat this.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just getting the word out that, we exist. There's so many maple companies already on the market. And what we're trying to do is just kind of reinvent the maple industry. We're taking products like maple syrup, and we're making it into maple butter, maple cotton candy.
Is maple, excuse my ignorance, is maple big around the rest of the world?
So it's not around the rest of the world, but the Northeast is definitely the wheelhouse of it,
Right.
and then the rest of the country is beginning to hop on board. And so there was actually a study done by the University of Rhode Island that said that maple's high in antioxidants, has a lower glycemic index than most honeys, and they called it a superfood. And so we just kind of hit it where I had a passion for real maple. All of a sudden, there was these health articles coming out saying that real maple is good for you, and it's actually, if you're going to eat sugar, you should eat maple. And so we kind of hit that curve right at the right time, and we have the right products at the right time. And so we've been able to really get traction through that. And as you said, I mean, capitalism gets vilified so much. And when you look at companies that, even some of the ones that you're just talking about, that are really good, I mean, Chick-fil-A, I think that we do a good job of this. I think that they're like Nature Nate's Honey here in Dallas puts God first. There's a whole a list of companies that really do take capitalism and the free markets and turn it into something good and benefit people's lives. And so that's what
capitalism
really
is supposed to be.
Yes,
it's supposed to be serving people.
Yeah, you know what I want to do is I want to take a big handful of this. I want to put it in pancake batter and then make the pancakes with it inside. Have you done this yet?
I have not tried that yet.
He's a food scientist. He'd make you look like a rookie. Thank you so much.
Yes,
thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so if you don't, give a website for people who don't have it in the grocery store.
It's parkersmaple.com. Parkersmaple.com. And again, it's in Costco and Wegmans and Whole Foods.
So good to meet you guys. Keep breaking all of the rules.
It really, I mean, we are married young. Yeah. So there's hope for millennials. I mean, we're really trying to grow this company and work hard to do it. And then really there's hope for America. We think that if we can inspire other young entrepreneurs or people who maybe don't have what my dad was to me, I think that we can help the next generation really pursue free markets and free people. So
if my son turns out to be half as focused as you are, I will have done a great job. Your father did amazing work. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
Glenn Beck.
I absolutely love those guys. Joshua has been on the program before, and I please go to what is their website?
ParkersMaple.
ParkersMaple.com. Go there, and really, their maple syrup is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, and it's all pure and organic and everything else. This cotton candy is, I guess you could just order it online if you don't have a Wegmans or, Costco has it, so you'd have a Costco.
I've never had anything like that. It's cotton candy.
No, it's weird. This cotton candy thing is catching on. Remember we had a Christmas party or something, and a woman was making specialty cotton candy, remember?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, it was at our house. It was a friend of a friend, and she makes this cotton candy in all different flavors, and so it's starting to catch on. This is the first time I've ever had maple syrup cotton candy, and it's really good. It's really good. But I just love their story. I love their spirit, and, why boycott when you can do something great and just help them out? ParkersMaple.com.
Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck.
It was supposed to be just a routine reconnaissance mission, but 4 American soldiers have been killed. It happened last week in Niger. Did you even know we had people there? Did you know we had soldiers operating in Niger? I think we are suffering from content inflation, a fire hydrant of so much useless information and juvenile bickering that we actually are missing the stories that are important. The U.S. has 800 troops stationed in Niger to help train Niger's military and help gather intelligence in the fight against al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups in the region. So we had 12 Green Berets, 20 Niger soldiers. They're on a reconnaissance mission. They were ambushed by terrorists driving a pickup truck and mounted with machine guns. The firefight, over in 30 minutes. When it was over, 4 Green Berets lay dead, 2 others wounded. 4 Niger soldiers also killed. Pentagon is now investigating the incident, but officials believe al-Qaeda was responsible for the attack. The terrorist group operates along the border there between Niger and Mali, where the soldiers were. The U.S. Defense Department attempts to follow what is known as the Golden Hour Standard. I had never heard of this, but it's one of those things that I think makes us really great. Our military tries to rescue a wounded soldier within an hour of being wounded. That obviously didn't happen in Benghazi. One U.S. general said it's not possible to have the Golden Hour Standard in Africa. Now, Benghazi is different because of the Gulf. But in parts of Africa, it is so remote, and especially where these soldiers were. It's landlocked, mostly a desert nation, deserted of any kind of people. It's about twice the size of Texas. And where they were operating was very, very remote. And it leaves the soldiers vulnerable to ambushes. We, by the way, did not pick them up. French helicopters finally arrived. They were 275 miles away. Some soldiers say that in this area, the standard rescue wait time is not an hour. It's closer to 10 hours. Just a note, these are the first American troops to die in the counterterrorism effort in Niger, where the U.S. has been since 2015. Why isn't this story more prominent? Do we care? Do we care where our soldiers even are anymore? Or are we just too busy talking about kneeling during the national anthem, oppressive statues, Melania Trump's footwear, empathy tents? You know, there's a lot more at stake here. People are fighting and dying for our rights, which most of us don't even understand or know the first thing about. And our way of life, they're fighting for that. They're fighting for our way of life, which it seems on some days, at least half the country is trying to destroy themselves. Are we suicide? Are we on a suicide path? Are we just tired of the news? Or are we ignoring it altogether?
It's Thursday, October 12th. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Rush Limbaugh came out yesterday with a pretty powerful statement on the NFL and Donald Trump. Here's the first cut.
There's a part of this story that's starting to make me nervous, and it's this. I am very uncomfortable with the President of the United States being able to dictate the behavior and power, or the behavior and of anybody. That's not where this should be coming from. Trump is continually tweeting, and I know what he's doing, and I understand why he's doing it, and his motives are pure, don't misunderstand. But I don't think that it is useful or helpful for any employee anywhere to be forced to do something because the government says they must. That scares the hell out of me. This should come from the league, as it looks like Goodell wants it to. The owners should be demanding this, not the president. The commissioner should be demanding this, not the president. We don't want the president being able to demand anybody that he's unhappy with behave in a way he requires. That's scary to me, even if the president's somebody I happen to like. This is a workplace issue. It's the owners and the league that let this get out of hand because they didn't know how to deal with it or were afraid to.
Here's the second cut.
If this is going to be made to work, the players are going to have to be told who the boss is, and they're going to have to be given specific workplace rules and regulations that they know has nothing to do with the Constitution, the First Amendment, freedom of speech. If you want to work for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you are going to stand for the anthem. If you want to work for the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to stand for the anthem. But I'm really nervous if all that happens because the president makes it happen. He can make it happen by forcing the owners. But this is a slippery slope.
No, it's a cliff. It's a cliff. And we went over that cliff again yesterday with the president and his Twitter comments about NBC and saying that NBC, we should start looking into their broadcast license. First of all, Mr. President, they don't have one. That's not the way it works. But second of all, people like Rush Limbaugh and me and you should be very, very concerned about a group of people cheering on a president who says, I don't agree with their facts, and so I'm going to use the government's power to shut down or regulate that particular media outlet. If you don't like their facts, then you have to contest their facts. If you say, well, I can't contest their facts, well, then you've got to come up with a better media system, which, you know, a lot of people have been trying. I don't know if it can be done. It's like herding cats, trying to get conservatives to stand together. But that's the way you do it. You don't regulate people, because the first voice that will be lost will be Rush Limbaugh's. The government has got to stay out of business. We didn't like it when Barack Obama was getting us involved with business on green issues, starting to get involved with GM. I lost $1 million. I canceled a General Motors contract. I was doing live commercials for General Motors. Do you know how long people waited to try to get General Motors onto talk radio? I canceled that because I was uncomfortable with General Motors getting in bed with the federal government. The federal government has nothing to do with our jobs. Less regulation. How is it the president is inserting himself in almost everybody's personal life? It's not just this guy. It was the last guy and the guy before that. Stay out of our lives. You know, and here we have these guys dying in Niger, and we don't even know the rights that they're fighting for. Honestly, what are we fighting for? Truth. Well, the president says what NBC reported the other day was not true. Well, I mean, you had people in his own cabinet that were part of that story. I mean, it looked pretty true. And if it's not, sue them.
Well, he can't. I mean, you know, look, they may have been sourced well, but they were mainly unnamed sources. You can't. The president of the United States is not going to sue NBC News. And
but that's what the president shouldn't. The president shouldn't. But I mean, geez, the press is not more powerful than the president of the United States. Stop. How is the most powerful man on the planet all of a sudden a victim?
Well, but this is how he handles that, right? His way of handling when he gets what he feels is a raw deal is to tweet about these things. Unfortunately, he's not grounded in the Constitution enough to think that would be inappropriate. I mean, he got hit by Rush Limbaugh. That was, I think, a related issue when it comes to the NFL situation.
Yes.
He was hit by a few talk show hosts and such yesterday. But we'll look at that and say, wait a minute. The First Amendment is important not just to liberals. It's important to everybody. It's important to all of us. And the mainstream media, who is now all of a sudden on the First Amendment bandwagon like crazy that Donald Trump is president, now they love it.
Yeah, they love it, and
they were
don't think we're stupid. We know when their guy comes in, what's going to happen. Their guy is going to say, talk radio's got to go. They're just filling it with lies. We need to regulate the internet. Because how do you know when people are... No, we don't regulate people. We don't license people like that. We don't do that. This is America. And unless we stand together on the Constitution, we'll have zero credibility to be able to make the argument. We should be the ones who are the loudest in defense of this. But if you looked at the media from the right yesterday, there was barely a mention of this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot from the mainstream media, but not the other way. It's interesting,
and that's
too.
Wrong.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get caught in that trap of, well, the mainstream media is really annoying. I mean, they're actually really terrible to us, and they beat us up all the time.
Yeah, they are.
And then all of that is true. However, it's still protected speech. And the concept, the principle of the First Amendment is way, way more important than some, by the way, meaningless article from NBC that did nothing. It was yet one meaningless article where they said he saw a chart in a meeting, and I know the chart he's talking about, which shows the nuclear arsenal of us versus the Soviet Union, now Russia, and how you see the increase. You see Russia gets ahead of us after a while, and they have a few more nuclear weapons than we do after a long decrease. And he said, well, why don't we have more? We should have 10 times more than them. Now, even if he said that, it's, it could easily be taken as an offhanded comment, not actual policy. Who cares? Exactly. It's the reason it was reported. It was supposedly the conversation that led to Rex Tillerson calling him an effing moron. But even that is not confirmed that it's true. The point here is that this is meaningless nonsense that is so far below what he should be caring about right now. And instead, he not only attacks them, which to me is pointless. You want to do it, fine, okay, whatever, but I understand it. But then to go and attack him in a way that is not factually accurate, they don't have a broadcast license, and it is also against the Constitution. And can you imagine what would have happened if Barack Obama came out and said, I'm taking away the license
of Fox
News Channel? Now, of course, they don't have one, so he would have been wrong on that. He certainly was critical, but he never went anywhere close
to doing that.
Do you remember
how upset we were when they just said, turn Fox off?
Yeah.
When we were so upset, how dare you turn Fox off, turn on Al Jazeera? We were crazy.
Yeah. Now,
he's saying we should look into the license of this, and the tweets from the right are all the same. They're all the same. They're all saying the same thing. Well, so you're for lies. No, I'm not for lies. I'm not for lies. That's what a libel suit is for.
Right.
That's what the court system is for.
When it comes to the President of the United States,
people
are going to say things that are not true. Yes. He knows that.
Yes.
He knows that. He's said things many times. He's even said...
Should we look at his license when he said that Ted Cruz's dad was part of the assassination attempt of Kennedy? Come on,
and
man.
At the end of the day, what he says there, at the end of that, is like, look, it was a campaign, and we all said he did things. And that's the same thing with NBC News now.
Yes.
Just blow it off. Who cares what these people are saying about you? Who cares? I'm fascinated about how into this he gets.
I know, but I don't think that's the. I don't think that's the story,
and I don't think it's real either. To be perfectly honest about it, it's really terrible for Donald Trump as the President of the United States to be basically saying, the First Amendment for sources that I don't like doesn't really apply. Secondarily, I don't think he means it. I don't think he's going to take any action on it.
No, he's just stirring it up.
He's just stirring it up, and I just think it's pointless. I'd much rather be focusing on something that actually matters.
The reason why I brought it up so many times today is because there aren't a lot of people talking about it on the right, and we should be leading the charge. Are we the constitutionalists or not? You cannot cede ground on this. You are the constitutionalist. You're the one who's supposed to stand up and say, wait, we stand, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution, the First Amendment, gives me 5 rights. And one of those 5 in the First Amendment is free speech, freedom of the press. That the government cannot do anything with freedom of the press. To me, that means even licensing. Now, they got around it because FDR was so paranoid, and he wanted to make sure that he could control the broadcast during the Great Depression and the Second World War, that they came up with the FCC and the free airwaves that belong to all the people. That's how they got away with it. Well, that's not the case anymore. Cable, internet, unless they start to regulate that. And believe me, they will. They're licking their chops to do it. What do you think all of this stuff with Facebook is? What do you think that is?
Net neutrality.
Well, they can't control it. They can't control it. We need the government to come in and control. We need to start licensing people. Do you think I'm going to get a license to broadcast on the internet? Do you think you're going to get a license to broadcast on the internet?
You think Trump would have had one before he was president? How does he become president? How does he become president without these freedoms? He doesn't. That's how he was able to speak his mind freely, and it won him the presidency. These are important freedoms. It's why it's in the First Amendment. It's not even like the 90th Amendment. It's number one.
With a bullet for a reason.
Glenn Beck.
All right. So, this week we've been talking about Harvey Weinstein and, the sexual harassment of women and everything else. Listen to this one. The Halloween costume industry is offering a new outfit called the Sexy First Lady costume.
The Sexy First Lady costume.
Yeah. And it's the Sexy Model Wife or the Sexy First Lady costume. Okay, so
and that's okay.
That's that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. That's totally fine. Can I ask you, when did everything at Halloween have to be sexy? These are some of the costumes.
As soon as I showed up.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here. Try this. The sexy Melania. Okay. All right.
She's a supermodel, so
will he help you look like Melania? Okay.
No.
The sexy skunk.
There have been some hot skunks. People underrate them.
Really?
Yeah.
The hot skunk.
Yeah.
Okay, the sexy skunk. The sexy pizza costume.
That one I agree with wholeheartedly. Every pizza is
That's
a sexy
not really
pizza.
a costume.
No.
That's just fully clothed, totally naked underneath, whatever. Is there a pizza on you? Bring it on over. That's not really a costume. That's a food.
That's why it's so sexy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand. The sexy vampire.
I guess that's been big the last few years, right? With Twilight and all that nonsense, right? Isn't that a sexy vampire thing?
Yes, I guess I don't.
Can't say that I saw any of the films.
Sexy Mangala. What else are we coming up with? There's some things that just aren't sexy.
Yeah, it's weird to combine the sexy with the scary. Because, all these creatures, a vampire is someone killing you and sucking your blood.
Yeah,
right?
But they're hot.
But they're really sexy while doing it. So,
Glenn Beck. You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
Joining us now in studio is the one and only Pat Gray.
There's actually another one of me. He's a realtor. And
you're actually very upset because
he's confiscated all the Pat Gray addresses everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is a real thing?
It's a real thing.
Did you know that only realtors can be members of the National Association of Realtors?
And I think it's so discriminatory.
So you remember this guy, and I don't want to get into names because I don't know why this guy is so hepped up on this, but there's a guy. Remember the guy who said that people were claiming he was saying the world's going to come to the end.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago.
The numerologist?
Yeah, the numerologist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we apparently, I guess you or somebody tweeted out the wrong guy. Same guy, different name, like the real estate agent with you, okay?
Right.
And the guy just got hammered online. And
fairly common thing that happens in 2017, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got hammered online. And I guess by the end of the day or something, he had his attorneys calling us and telling us that we were smearing him and his good name was
God.
Okay. But you ready? The guy was, I think, like a psychic in England. And it's like the psychic is worried about the numerologist giving him a bad name. Come on, man. Anyway, Pat, what's on your plate today?
I'm really concerned. I know you guys have been talking about it some today. I'm concerned about the NBC threat by Donald Trump. The president threatening to have their license revoked if they don't start saying things he wants them to say. That's incredibly dangerous. And he doubled down on it today. Network news has become so partisan, distorted, and fake that licenses must be challenged and, if appropriate, revoked.
No,
No.
they shouldn't.
First of all, the networks don't have licenses, so that's fake news in and of itself. You could go to the individual stations,
yeah,
and you could revoke licenses.
But you know what this leads to?
Yes.
You know what this leads to? And listen, do you remember how upset I was after talking to Ted Koppel? And why was I upset talking to Ted Koppel? Because he said, all the stuff, like Alex Jones, all this stuff, and he puts Sean Hannity into this category. All this stuff, all this fake news and everything, it's got to stop. Well, how do you do it? Well, we've got to start licensing journalists.
Really bad.
Really bad. Because do you think I'm going to get a license? Do you think Pat's going to get a license?
No.
Do you think people who have your point of view are going to get a license? The answer is no.
And how many times do you have to say, your guy is not going to be in office forever? We all know that. So the next guy's not going to want us to have a license. And in fact, when Obama used to rail on Fox News, but at least he never challenged their license or their ability to broadcast. He just talked about how partisan they were. But if Obama had suggested this against Fox News, people would be apoplectic. They'd be going out of their minds right now, and rightly so.
So everybody is
we
saying...
got to do the same thing on this.
I know, but everybody is saying, well, so you're for fake news? You're for the lies?
No,
they're spreading lies.
It's just, but you can't. Who's going to be the arbiter of what's fake and what's real? Who's going to do that? That was the same thing with Facebook. Everybody wanted them to start deleting fake news. Well, do you want Facebook to decide what's fake and what's real?
Look what's happening with Twitter.
How much of our websites, how much of our Facebook pages would be deleted?
Do you remember the federal government, about halfway through the Obama administration, remember we got calls from people who were in the Pentagon or something that said that TheBlaze.com and GlennBeck.com had been cut off.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
So somebody in the government institution said, nope, you can't listen to that.
Yeah, you don't want this. You just don't want this.
And this is obviously, you need to take this, whatever you think this right stance is, you need to take it for both presidents, right? If you think Trump is okay doing this, you need to be okay with the idea of Obama doing it. And we shouldn't give a pass to Obama. He did. You're right. He was very critical of Fox News. He said people shouldn't watch it. They should watch other things. Yeah. He also did use his legal apparatus to go after individual reporters that
more
he didn't
so
like.
than anybody else in history.
Yeah, I mean, he was not good.
Yeah,
but we stood up against him on that.
Yeah, they're both wrong.
Yes,
and you know, it's hard because I mean, even the mainstream media was upset back then a little bit when they went after even Fox reporters. I mean,
yes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But it should be complete outrage like they have now. They're all, it's the lead of every mainstream broadcast right now about how Trump's going to shut down the First Amendment. Now, in reality, do I think he's going to try to do that? Probably not. It's probably one of his big talking tweet type of things. But still, it doesn't matter. It's just like when, if the president were to come out, if Obama came out and said, I'm going to restrict all these guns, and he didn't actually make a move, you'd still need to fight it. Mm-hmm. Because so the mainstream media knows, all these amendments are supposed to all be important. Like they're all offended about the first one when their rights are going away. The second one's also important. You should be fighting for that one too. And the third about quartering soldiers in your home. Should not be allowed.
Here's the problem. People don't know their rights. They don't really care about them. And if they can't learn about their rights on Twitter, then they're not interested. So by him saying this, it creates the illusion to people on our side that the president has a right or a responsibility to request that. So even if he didn't have any intention of doing it,
he shouldn't be even suggesting.
No.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't accept the suggestion and say that it's okay. Look, there is at least 2 generations that don't have any idea of what these rights mean. You're dealing with 54% of millennials now saying that the government should restrict free speech. Anytime a conservative talks about restricting free speech, you've got to shut it down and stand up.
No
you
question.
have to.
Yeah. Did you guys see this story of the congressional pharmacist? The Congress has drugs hand delivered to them every single day by
that explains a lot.
How heavy are they?
So it's a really long article and a big expose about how they're so privileged that they have the Office of Physicians or something that they go to and are treated for $500 a year or something, and then they have this service where the druggist comes to them and delivers. But what was more shocking to me than the fact that they have that service provided, and that's a really nice perk for Congress, was the pharmacist said some of the things he's delivering, like Alzheimer's medication. Isn't that something Americans should know about if some of our representatives are suffering from Alzheimer's? We should know about that, and that person should honestly, and look, I have enormous sympathy. One of my greatest fears is contracting Alzheimer's. I saw my dad suffer with some form of dementia at the end of his life. And so I have a lot of empathy for people who are in that situation, but you can't be governing this country if you're losing your mind.
Wow,
right?
that's incredible.
Why? The next thing you're going to say is you want somebody to regulate a pilot. A pilot has Alzheimer's, and you're like, he shouldn't be able to fly.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you?
The pharmacist quote was like, yeah, it's a little concerning because we don't even know if they can remember what happened yesterday. Yeah, that's a problem. As he was talking about, these are the people who make the highest laws in the land. Nobody's even talking about that. Huge expose came out yesterday.
Wow. With who? I haven't even heard
I think it was in the New York Times.
That's amazing.
I'll have to look at the
It would actually explain
I wonder who that
it
would.
Yes,
it
really
would.
Wouldn't it?
It would.
And you wonder, we've talked before about, I think there's something seriously wrong with Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I don't know that she has Alzheimer's, but she could be in the early stages of something. She's pretty damn confused on a regular basis.
Harry Reid,
Harry Reid was another problem.
Yeah, Harry Reid. I think Harry Reid had a problem.
It really felt
I
like
think,
that.
And maybe that's why he got out.
I think Orrin Hatch doesn't have Alzheimer's, but I think he's not connected very often.
No, that's true
to things.
Yeah. Of course, he's got Kennedy disease, too.
Kennedy's disease? What's that?
That's when you start agreeing with Ted Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
Because you're good buddies.
There's no cure.
Yeah.
There's no
cure for that.
It's terminal.
Glenn Beck.
All right, a couple things going on. The president's just signed an executive order that was really Rand Paul influenced to what they claim will open up the markets for Obamacare and allow you to buy some things that will be cheaper programs for your family.
And I think a lot of the audience might hear the words executive order, and get scared of that. And that is the right reaction.
Yes.
However, in this case, I really don't even think this is an executive order. The way this thing actually works is a law that's already in place and has been in place for a long time. And what it does is to allow, let's say, a large company, right, your IBM, and you can do your own healthcare system, your own health insurance system with all your employees, right? So you have groups of people that have similar characteristics that can be grouped together. And that was a way to make it so, these big companies can do it themselves and they're not going to be overregulated. This has existed for a very long time. It's not often used. And the reason why it's not often used is because Obamacare didn't exist and we had health insurance that actually worked. So this entire time, what they have done is look at these associations, these health associations. If you wanted to do one at this company, like we would be associated. We both work for the same company and we could get under the same insurance plan. But let's say instead we interpreted that to say the Glenn Beck health insurance can cover anyone who's a big Glenn Beck fan, right? That is what Trump is doing. He's saying, look, the way and Rand Paul as well, have been associated, we've been looking at these associations has been in these really strict ways.
That's fantastic.
Directly under a company. Now it can be, let's say, all NRA members would be able to get on the same health care plan if they just if the NRA
That's
chose
fantastic.
to do it, right? And then they would not have to be held under these.
It's like AARP.
Right, exactly. AARP is another one. And so you'd have this thing where you'd have people who would be able to get this health insurance outside of the Obamacare restrictions, which is the main thing driving up all the crazy cost. Now,
so you could do, like, for instance, a very healthy group of people, strangely, because we eat more chocolate and ice cream than anybody else on the planet, but are the Mormons. They live an average of like 10 years longer than the average person.
Lots of root beer, too, if I'm not mistaken.
It's root beer. It's like all the stuff
funeral potatoes, which are delicious, by the way.
Crazy. But anyway, I would imagine if Mormons could put together a healthcare system, it would probably be a lot cheaper because for the most part, Mormons are healthier.
Yeah, but that's and that is also, because you're right. That's the benefit of it. It's also the criticism of it. What the left is saying is all those healthy people, like how healthy Glenn Beck is. All those healthy people like Glenn Beck.
I'm a latecomer to the party.
Yeah, it's true. That's what happens when you're a convert. When you have all the healthy people are going to band together. They're going to get really cheap insurance.
Yes.
But then, where does that leave the sick people is the argument. So the sick people are no longer subsidized by force of law.
No, if they would get into the program, they would be into the program when they're healthy. And then they'd be taken care of when they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to get health care once you're sick, it's kind of sucks. That's not insurance then.
Right, it's not insurance. You're just paying for something that you already have. So the argument here, though, is that it's going to blow up these exchanges because the people who are healthy are going to leave the exchanges.
Yes, of course.
And the people who are not healthy are going to be forced to stay and not be accepted into these arrangements, depending on which one they are. And the rates for the people remaining are going to go through the roof, and they're going to get screwed. That's the argument against it. Now, I believe this law should have been interpreted this way the entire time, and probably would have if there was a real problem like this that Obamacare has
so
created.
What is this done? Because the law was already there. So what does this do? This just clarifies that it can be done that way?
Basically saying, like, this is how we should be looking at this. Is essentially what he's saying.
So it's not even really an executive order.
It's not an executive order. It's like, to me, it's like it's an interpretation.
It's an executive recommendation.
Right. It's not even like ignoring a law. Like Obama came in with DACA and was like, hey, these kids, they're illegal, but I don't think they should be illegal. So let's not go after them. Let's not enforce that part of the law. Let's give them a way out of it. Right. He did a bunch of that while he was president. That's not what this is. This is the law's in place. This is what it does. Associations. These associations have been interpreted to be very tight in the past. However, there's no indication. If you look at the way when they passed this law, look at the way that they talked about it, they intended them to be much easier than the way it's been interpreted. So I think it's actually returning to the original interpretation of this. And I think, like, people will look at Rand Paul as a guy who's probably one of the more Constitution-focused people in our government in many ways. He was a guy pushing for this. And, he's not a guy who's a fan of executive orders.
No, he hates them.
But this is something that I think is just a logical interpretation.
See if we can get him on tomorrow.
Yeah.
He was standing right behind the president. The president handed him the only pen that he used to sign this. So this really came from Rand Paul, and I trust him and would like to hear more about it from him, hopefully on tomorrow's program.
Glenn Beck.